The moment Ethan stepped into the bright, modern cafe in Portland, Oregon, he knew he shouldn't have agreed to the setup. His friend had begged him to give the blind date a chance, but all he could think about were the dozens of real responsibilities waiting for him outside: deadlines, bills, endless tasks. He didn't need another complication. Yet here he was, walking toward a woman he'd been told was deaf and paralyzed, and who apparently still wanted to try dating. He felt a twist of guilt, but not enough to stop the frustration simmering beneath his calm expression. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want the weight of someone else's struggle added to his own. But the moment he saw her, Grace, sitting in her wheelchair near the tall windows, her posture elegant, her face composed yet undeniably guarded, something inside him faltered. She looked strong and fragile all at once, like a person who'd learned to rebuild herself more times than most people ever had to. And yet, Ethan's heart remained shielded. He approached anyway, rehearsing the polite excuses he planned to use to cut the date short. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Ethan stood before Grace, and she lifted her gaze to meet his. Her eyes were striking, steady, observant, almost painfully honest. He wondered how much she could read from him already: the reluctance, the impatience, the pity he tried to suppress. He forced a smile, trying to hide the discomfort tightening his chest. It wasn't that he looked down on her. He just didn't feel ready for the emotional responsibility her life might demand. He had convinced himself he needed someone uncomplicated, someone light, someone who didn't come with a past carved by suffering. Grace, meanwhile, was fighting her own private battle. She had agreed to this date only because her sister kept insisting she deserved love, even after the accident that stole both her mobility and her hearing 3 years ago. She wasn't naive. She saw the hesitation in Ethan's stance, sensed the distance in his polite smile. She had learned the body language of disappointment far too early and had grown accustomed to watching people withdraw before they ever gave her a chance. Still, she refused to let that break her spirit today. She reminded herself that showing up was its own quiet victory. They sat across from each other, and Ethan awkwardly tried to communicate, using the basic signs he had learned the night before. "Hello, nice to meet you." Grace nodded with a gentle expression of gratitude, though she could see he was tense. She signed slowly, patiently, careful not to overwhelm him. He recognized some gestures, misunderstood others. The air filled with strained silence. He checked his watch twice within the first 10 minutes, thinking she wouldn't notice. She did. And yet, Grace stayed calm. She refused to let another person's discomfort make her feel small. Still, inside her heart, the familiar heaviness spread. She wondered if this would be another date that ended with a polite apology, a sympathetic smile, and a number that would never be used again. She had tried so hard to rebuild her life, learning to navigate the world from her wheelchair, learning to use her voice again after months of not speaking, learning to sign well enough to communicate even when her hands trembled from nerves. She wasn't looking for pity. She wanted someone who saw her courage rather than her limitation. Ethan cleared his throat, preparing to say something that would end the date gently. Maybe kindly, but definitely soon. He looked down, searching for the right phrasing, but when he looked up again, something unexpected happened. Grace's lips parted. Her voice, soft, shaky, but undeniably present, filled the quiet space between them. "I know this wasn't what you wanted," she said carefully, the word slightly uneven, as if rebuilt from memory rather than instinct. "You don't have to stay, if this is too much." Ethan froze. Something in her voice, its strength wrapped in vulnerability, hit him like a wave. He had prepared himself for silence. He had not prepared himself for courage. Grace didn't speak often. Her doctors had warned her that her vocal cords might never fully recover after the accident. Speaking required concentration, breath control, and emotional bravery she didn't always have. But she had sensed his drifting heart, and rather than let him slip away without understanding her, she forced herself to speak. And in that moment, Ethan felt something shift inside him. The excuses he had planned suddenly felt cowardly, hollow. He saw her not as a burden, not as a responsibility, but as a human being who had endured unimaginable loss and still showed up for life, for hope, for this moment. She wasn't asking him to fix her. She wasn't asking him to stay. She was simply giving him the truth. Before he could stop himself, Ethan pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down with real intention for the first time. The noise of the cafe faded away as he studied her expression, the steady eyes, the faint tremble in her jaw, the quiet resilience she didn't even seem aware she carried. He took a breath, feeling something worn and unfamiliar stirring in his chest. He didn't try to escape. He didn't try to pretend. Instead, he allowed himself to simply be present. As the minutes stretched on, the conversation took on a different rhythm. He asked questions not out of politeness but curiosity. She answered not out of obligation but trust. He learned about her love of painting, the therapy sessions she fought through, the silent world she now lived in but refused to fear. She learned about his job, his loneliness, the walls he built around himself after failing relationships he never fully healed from. They talked with words, with signs, with pauses that held more meaning than either expected. Hours passed without either noticing. By the time Ethan walked her to her van, he no longer saw her as the woman he did want to date. He saw her as the woman who reminded him what bravery looked like, the woman who taught him, in a single trembling sentence, that strength wasn't loud. It was quiet and steady and unbelievably powerful. He asked to see her again. And this time, she didn't doubt his sincerity. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support more life-changing stories. Before you go, comment below, what does true courage mean to you?